Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Business Talks. I am your host, Chawanne Burns. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Donald Trump and Nikki Haley, what came about over the weekend. Um, Nikki Haley, she finally won a primary, so good for Nikki Haley. Like she said, she's vowing not to quit. So we'll be discussing that in the primaries that's coming up in a couple of days, or actually tomorrow. We're also going to discuss it's a win for Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Colorado decided to take Donald Trump off the ballots, and they went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided that it was unconstitutional. Colorado is not, they do not have the authority to make federal decisions. So he has to remain on the ballot. Okay, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people in Colorado that were against Donald Trump is probably crying that justice prevails and the Constitution is upheld. And this vote was unanimously. Okay, so what more can you say about that? So we'll discuss that. And also we have a short story on Latoya Cantrell. Remember, you guys, we talked about her. She's the Louisiana mayor that decided to have an affair with her security detail. She went on these lavish trips. She spent $30,000 on a flight. Just really exuberant price to spend on a flight um, I believe it was Italy or somewhere. I'm not for sure, but the city council made her pay that flight back. She tried to build a city for it. Okay. Anyway, so she's nearing, and they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to indict Latoya for her inappropriate relationships and the misuse of funds, a whole bunch of other stuff that she's getting caught up with. Okay, so and also the city council is threatening, not even threatening, they're trying to evict her from this city apartment that she used this apartment to have the affair with. Okay, so we'll be discussing that all today on another episode of Business Talks.
Something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Ay, this is what you call a bap. What? This is what you call a bap. Something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Ay, this is what you call a bap. What? This is what you call a bap.
You guys put in the chat, let me know where you're viewing from. Put in the chat, let me know where you're viewing from. Let's see who we got in the building. We have Lexi in the building and Noble Young. You guys, thank you for tuning in. Lexi says, this is good news for Trump. I totally agree with you. Okay, let's get to our first story of the hour. This is, no, block this. Latoya Cantrell, okay? Latoya Cantrell is one of those, I guess we're in the era that, okay, diversity and exclusion, we're in the front. Okay, women, if you're a woman, black woman, minority, whatever, you're in the front. We're taking over. We're starting to win elections. People are starting to see and put faith in women, number one, and in black women. We have two black mayors that we spoke about. Actually, three. One had a short stint. She was indicted on some federal charges because she misused COVID funds or actually put false information on her COVID application, and she was indicted. I think she has to serve community service. And if you're not familiar who I'm speaking of, this is a mayor that was in Warren, Michigan. Okay, so that's one black mayor that we've been talking about. The other one is Tiffany Henyard. Tiffany Henyard, of course, she's a mayor and also a county township supervisor. So we've been discussing her for the last few months, since last year. I believe November of last year, that's when I started talking about her. So, you know, she garnered 80% of the vote, and people trust and liked her. And what does she do? She decided to turn up and have parties, go out on trips, have this affair, and hire all the people, that criminal people that shouldn't even be a part of the city government. They're actually running the city. Okay. So she has a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. She's under FBI investigation. And then we have this illustrious, and I'm pretty sure there's other people out there, but this illustrious mayor from New Orleans. Okay. New Orleans. She was, I think she's been in office for a few years, a couple of years. And one thing about her, she decided that she wanted to have an affair with an officer. Okay. And while I believe her husband, I don't know if he was sick. I really don't know. I really don't know what the details of that with her husband, but he ended up dying. Okay. But we do know, last story I reported, if you guys want to look for that story, is just Latoya Cantrell. I reported that her, the officer that she was having an affair with, he was married. And in his divorce proceedings, she put down the dates that she knew of that they were actually sleeping together, because he wouldn't come home. So she pinpointed, and I'm saying the wife of the officer pinpointed, his name is Vapey, pinpointed on the days that he did not come home. So she just assumed, well, he had to be with the mayor, bumping uglies. And so right now they're making a determination of potential charges against Cantrell and Vapey. Vapey is the officer that she is having an affair with. And some of the charges that they're talking about is, well, they're talking about, use of city's money. So you're clocking in, and the city is paying for you to have an affair with this lady. Okay. Let's see what this video is saying.
How's the scented angel soft coming?
Angel, we've got it. The smelling room is at the scent inside the tube.
Their job is to simply follow the evidence wherever the evidence leads. And clearly, that's all they're doing.
Tonight, a significant step in the federal investigation into New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell and a member of her security team as authorities determine whether to charge them with federal crimes. Good evening, I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Meg Gatto. The U.S. Attorney's Office ordered Fox 8 to turn over videos used in our investigations, which focused on Mayor Cantrell and NOPD officer Jeffrey Vapey's use of time and taxpayer money.
Here's our latest outside the office investigation.
A piece of paper the head of the Metropolitan Crime Commission says leads him to this conclusion.
I think the government is preparing to indict.
Possibly preparing to indict New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell and her security guard Jeffrey Vapey. That piece of paper, a federal grand jury subpoena sent by the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Orleans to Fox 8, asking us for a copy of all of our outside the office investigations.
Is this typically a near the end of the investigation?
Yeah, if there wasn't anything that was going to come of this investigation that we know has been going on for the better part of 2 years publicly, then they wouldn't be subpoenaing records at this point in time.
So, and like he said, they wouldn't be subpoenaing records at this time if they didn't, they wasn't planning to try to put some charges against Vapey and Cantrell. The sad thing about this, like I mentioned before, this is a Black woman and she's not old at all. She's like a 51 or something like that. And you're over a major metropolitan city. And what we always hear from Democrats and other progressives, that, oh, they're targeting me because I'm a black person, blah 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 blah. Okay. Or we never are afforded the opportunities. And remember, we listen to, what's the girl's name that used to be on the Breakfast Club? She told Vivek Ramaswamy to name any black person that was in a position of power or in a position of leadership. And it's like you have all these black ran cities, all these black, and not only black women, we have black men running some of these cities. And what do we end up coming up with? A bunch of shit. It's and it's sad. That's what's the misfortune about all this, because we see this kind of stuff, and corruption happens everywhere on all spectrums, on the right and the left. So this is not like a Democrat or Republican thing. The problem is when it gets down to Republican and Democrat, you can't say, oh, we're not in a position of power. And when we do have a position of power, we do this. We hear more stories about this than stories that's on the up and up. Or we see shitty ass cities. I don't know how New Orleans is functioning, what type of crime. I know they got a high crime level. But we know Chicago is right behind California and San Francisco. San Francisco is ran by a black mayor. She hasn't been into no mess like this, but it's ran by this a progressive type person. So we're saying, oh, give us a chance. We're just as right, and we're just capable as the other party, which I totally agree with. But when we can't just vote because this lady is a black woman. And I think we really need to start looking at these people's characters before we start voting them in office. And I hate to say it, I think women are, our track record is starting to be pretty bad here. Women in particular. It seemed like some of the stuff that we've been reporting on, they can't keep it in their pants. They like dogs in heat. I mean, what the hell is going on? You have Tiffany Henyard having an affair. You have Fonnie Willis having an affair. You have this Latoya Cantrell having an affair. That one city councilwoman, somebody put it in the chat, I forgot her name, but she's having an affair. Marilyn Mosey, she wanted to have all the money, I guess. She lied on the COVID application, saying she was in distress, or I guess how you could get a mortgage moratorium. She was lying on that, or she lied to get money out to purchase another rental property, and she claimed that it was some other, how you take out your 401k, but she lied on her application. Tesla and Steven 1976, thank you for putting that in there. Tesla Figaro. Tesla Figaro is the person, she's always saying, oh, name me one place in one city that we're in a position that lead. Like, you got all these major cities that black people are running. So what are you talking about, discrimination and stuff? We're voting them, even, and not only us, white people are voting these people in because they're liberal or progressive or whatever. So they're giving these people a chance. And then what do? They just run them amok, and they don't uphold the law or anything like that. So, I'm not going to listen to this whole thing. If you guys want to look for Latoya Cantrell, and they're basically indicting her. Okay. Why else would they ask for videos from a news station? Because they're trying to come together whether or not to indict her. A federal grand jury. So they're going to see if they have enough information, enough evidence to get an indictment to go forward for charges. That's what grand juries are for. Okay. So the next thing about Latoya Cantrell, just really quickly. So remember my last report, she was meeting at this apartment that the city owns. Really nice apartment. I'm assuming this apartment is for guests. And she was meeting there, and it's in the French Quarters. And they said on this news article, it's saying Latoya Cantrell, mayor, has until noon Monday to provide the council her move out date from Pontauba apartment. A letter was sent by Council Vice President J.P. Morrill, said that if he doesn't get a response from the mayor by noon, that he has no choice but to move forward with the process of an eviction. 6 months ago, the New Orleans City Council passed an ordinance limiting the mayor's use of the property as a personal home. Now, I already reported she only lives 3 miles away from where she stays at. She has a really nice home. So you're saying I'm going to stay in this apartment because it's closer to the your office, but no, you just wanted to be where the cameras are not following you, and they end up following you, so you could bump uglies with your security detail. That's all what that was for. Okay. So she has until today, noon today, to respond. Okay. And the spokesperson for the mayor's office says there is a multi-million-dollar plan in works for the entire Upper Manitoba building. Once an agreement is finalized, the public will be notified. What does that have to do with the prices in China? We don't know. They just, oh, I'm doing the work. And one of these videos that I saw of Latoya Cantrell, she was saying, I always do my job and I always do it great, blah, blah, blah. Okay, just because you do your job, you guys make sure you can hear me. My thing is not plugged in. Just because you do your job, it would have charged out. Anyway, just because you do your job, that does not make it where you could just do anything and sleep with anybody. You're not supposed to do that. I mean, that's just normal common sense, okay? So it's saying a government watchdog says New Orleans Latoya Cantrell is holding her former apartment hostage, and now the city council is fighting back. This comes 6 months after the city council passed the ordinance. Mayor Cantrell's use of the apartment has been scrutinized throughout her second term. So this is her second term. They reelected her. I didn't know that. The city council passed the ordinance limiting all mayors from using the apartments as a home with no overnights. Months later, city leaders said she broke the ordinance. Yeah, because they followed her and her boyfriend to this apartment, and they were spending the night. And it's saying that $3,000 monthly and rental that is being squandered. I am told that the mayor is refusing to remove all her belongings, and that is part of the reasons for the impediment of attempting to learn more about this. But what is confirmed is that the 6 months after the apartment is ordered to go back on the market, it hasn't done so because she's refusing to remove her things. Okay. So that's that, so she's probably going to get evicted. It's the worst thing is to have someone, the entitlement that you feel like you are entitled because you have a position of power. You're not entitled to these things. Just because you have a position of power, you are not above the law. You are a mayor, you are a supervisor, you are a district attorney. You are not above the law. You're not a queen, okay? We don't have kings and queens that are installed in our democracy. We don't have that. And if we did, okay, then you can do whatever the hell you want. But until we have that, and we will never have it, you can't do that. You still have to abide by the rules, ordinance, and regulations and the laws of the land, just like everybody else. Okay, so like I said, the entitlement of some of these people that's in office is just baffling to me. Okay, so let's move on. That's all I'm going to say about that. We're going to move on to our next story. So our next story is about our good old friend Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, she gets her first win. She gets her first win in the most unlikeliest place, Washington, D.C., and she's celebrating. Nikki, come on now. You just, for some reason, I said Nikki was cringe, but some reason I don't think Nikki reads between the lines. It's like, okay, you got your first win, woohoo! But this is the most democratic city in the nation. Why are you happy? Like, you should really feel sad because number one, do they even have any Republicans in Washington, D.C.? Number one, none of your people voted for you. Like, do they have any Republicans in Washington, D.C.? I'm not for sure. I'm not for sure, but she won it. Let's just pull it up. They didn't even put it on here. It's right here. Let me just go to here. And it's saying Nikki Haley gets first 2024 win in Washington, D.C. GOP primary. Haley took the primary in the nation's capital, NBC News projects. It was one of Trump's weakest contests during the first run in 2016. And Nikki Haley, she seems so proud of herself. Okay. She's proud of herself that she won DC. And she has 43 delegates right now. She won 19 in DC. And right now Donald Trump has 247. I think, don't you need like 1,200 to win or something like that? 1,215 to win. And it doesn't look good for Nikki Haley. Let's see what NBC News is talking about.
Runner Donald Trump on the verge of taking a giant step towards the GOP nomination, with a potentially decisive Super Tuesday showdown looming. 15 states and more than 800 delegates at stake, from California to Texas to Virginia.
This November, Virginia is going to tell crooked Joe Biden, you're fired, you're fired.
On Saturday, the former president targeting Biden's mental state.
The guy can't put two sentences together.
Then claiming his own past mix-ups, including switching the names of Obama and Biden in speeches, were on purpose.
I do that because, that makes a point. Because a lot of people say he's running the country.
But later, Trump seemed to make the same mistake again.
And Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word today. You heard that, nuclear. He's starting to talk nuclear weapons today.
NBC reported, he just said, I do that on purpose, because everybody jokes that Obama is still in the White House and he's pulling all the strings. Actually, Michelle Obama. Everybody jokes about that. And then NBC says, oh, and he makes that same mistake again. Well, it's not a mistake. He said he does it on purpose. This is how stupid some of these media people are. It's like, I just said I do it on purpose because I'm saying it jokingly. We all know, and everybody knows it. We all know that they talk about Donald Trump or Joe Biden being controlled by Barack Obama. He never left the White House. Barack Obama never left the White House. And that's been a running joke for the longest since Biden got elected. Biden would not get elected. If Obama decide not to endorse Biden, just imagine if Biden wasn't endorsed by Barack Obama. Do you really think he would have run that election? No, because Democrats is kind of shaky. They don't really care for him anyway. Remember Biden ran for president like twice and he lost both times. So let's get realistic here. Like the news media they just so out of touch with like just normal people or what's going on, Anyway.
Today.
As a new poll shows Mr. Trump leading the president 48-43 among registered voters nationwide, suggesting a margin of error rematch in the making. Nearly 3/4 of that same pool of voters say President Biden at 81 is now too old to be an effective president, while 42% say the same of Mr. Trump, who's 77.
We can do better than two 80-year-old candidates.
Overnight, Trump rival Nikki Haley claimed her first primary victory in the District of Columbia, becoming the first woman in history to win any GOP primary contest.
America is better than what we see right now.
On Meet the Press, Haley also indicating she would not endorse Trump if he wins the GOP nomination, backing away from an RNC-mandated pledge all the candidates except Mr. Trump made last year.
I have always said that I have serious concerns about Donald Trump. I have even more concerns about Joe Biden.
Now, the most important campaign news of this day may happen just down the road at the Supreme Court, where we could see a ruling as early as this morning on whether Mr. Trump can stay on the ballot in Colorado. Remember, that's one of several states which have questioned whether his actions on January 6th amounted to an insurrection, which would disqualify him under the 14th Amendment.
So, and this leads me to my next story. So just before I get to that, Nikki Haley, she doesn't realize, she doesn't know how to read between the lines. Like I said, Washington, D.C. is the most unlikely state to be celebrated in. Who voted for you, Nikki? Okay. And then you're saying, oh, I'm not going to endorse. I'm not beholding to the Republican Party. Even if he wins the primary, I will not endorse him or get behind him as a candidate. Okay, so what are you saying here, Nikki? Are you trying to run for independent party, or are you trying to get on Biden's ticket? You trying to replace Biden? Are you trying to become a Democrat? Because sometimes you spout Democrat policies. Some of the stuff, the rhetoric that she talks about is very Democrats. They thinks the same way. But like I said, you are not in 2024. This is happening to you and you're just like, oh, I won DC. Like, okay, that's not a win. Like, that's really not a win. I mean, you guys put in the chat, tell me if I'm going in the wrong direction. For you to be a Republican and you say, oh, I won my first primary in DC. Like, what is that? That's not an accomplishment. If I was a Republican and I'm running for the Republican Party and I won DC and that's the only place I won, I'd be pissed off. Like, nobody likes me. Like, I will be pissed. Okay. But apparently Nikki Haley thinks that's a sign of hope. Like, are you serious? It's a sign of hope for Nikki. So moving on, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But moving on to my next subject, Donald Trump. Okay, so Donald Trump He has 242. He won a few states this past, few days. The main thing I want to talk about is Colorado. So Colorado, remember, they took him off the ballot because they took the law in their own hands, saying Donald Trump is an insurrectionist and it goes against the 14th Amendment statute. Okay. Not a legal person. I know what I know. I try to comprehend what I know. I'm not gonna blow smoke up your ass. I don't know all the legal jargon. All I know is it was unconstitutional for them to try to take him off because he wasn't even convicted of a crime. They were saying, oh, he's an insurrectionist. And when I say use the word they, the media said they started the word insurrectionist, and everybody else put up on the word like, yes, he's an insurrectionist. He's a threat to our democracy. Okay, no. Okay. We could pick a lot of things that's threats to our democracy. Donald Trump is not one of them. Okay. Just because you don't agree with a group of people and they decide to protest some stuff that they believe in, that's called democracy. Okay. That's called America. Anyone should be able to protest to what they believe in. Okay. But what I was getting at is, okay, so this morning the ruling came down. And one thing that they did cited, they told Colorado, you don't have the authority to do this because you're not federal court, number one. Then number two, insurrectionists, and they said insurrectionists, something happened back in the day where people had an uprising against the government and they mentioned slavery. This is Sotomayor and Kanji. These are their statements. And they said Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. Okay. They mentioned about a time where they had insurrectionists because of slavery. They called it insurrectionists. And reason why that was allowed, because it was against slavery. My point is, just because it is a law, that doesn't mean you don't have a right to stand. You have the right, it's your right to say, I am against this. And so they mentioned that in this court document. And that's it's only 20 pages, but on the very last page, they were talking about that. And it also said, just because we're telling you to overturn, that doesn't mean we're saying he didn't commit a crime. It's just saying you don't have the right or the authority to take him off the ballot. That's basically, it's 3 points that they wanted to get across. But I just want to read this insert. It says, Supreme Court therefore cannot stand. All 9 members of the court agree with that result. Our colleagues writing separately further agree with many other reasons this opinion provides for reaching it. Okay. And then they're talking about that opinion that I mentioned. It's a joint opinion. And then Barrett wrote a different opinion. So far as we could tell, they object only to our taking into account the distinctive way of Section 3 works and the fact that Section 5 vests in Congress the power to enforce it. These are not the only reasons that the state lacks power to enforce this particular constitutional provision with respect to federal offices. But they are important ones. And it is the combination of all these reasons set forth in this opinion, not as some of our colleagues will have it, just one particular rationale that resolves this case. In our view, each of these reasons is necessary to provide a complete explanation for the judgment the court unanimously reaches. The judgment of the Colorado Supreme Court is reversed. The mandate shall issue forthwith. It is so ordered. Okay, so they're saying that they didn't agree with all the points that they was making. That's why they made their own opinion and put their own opinion. But unanimously, the Colorado's courts does not have the authority to say we're going to limit a person being on the ballot. It's unconstitutional. It's unjust. So with that being said, Illinois, what are you going to do? You know, Illinois, they decided to take Trump off the ballot. So now that you heard that, Illinois, you need to put Trump back on the ballot because it doesn't make sense. You guys put in the chat. Tell me what you think about that. Put in the chat. Tell me what you think about it. The Warrior, this clause is for Civil War only. No one who sided with the Confederacy could run for federal office if they swore an oath to or fought for the Confederacy. See, you know more than what I do, Warrior. I know about a little bit about that particular, like the legal jargon. I don't know nothing about it, and I'm not gonna even lie to you. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know what I read, and I know it's unconstitutional. It's just common sense. Just common sense. Okay. Kimberly Watson, good afternoon. I love watching your videos. I live in Mesquite, Texas. Great job. Thank you, Kimberly. The Warrior says if Colorado had gotten a ruling in their favor, then every Republican state would do the same for any reason they don't like Biden. One thing I believe, who's Mike? I think it's Mike Johnson. He's the chair, right? I believe it was him. Mike Johnson was mentioning that, hey, if you take off, if we're saying, we're convicting people of causing violent insurrectionists, and because they're stopping federal proceedings, because that's why they convicted all those people. They stopped federal proceedings, quote unquote. You know how they go into the Capitol building, mainly Tennessee. They had a big uprising in Tennessee and some other state where I believe it was like, the transgender LGBTQ community. They were in the federal building disrupting proceedings. So he mentioned, hey, if that's the case, why don't we just start arresting all the protesters and charging them with a crime? Even with the Hamas thing, they were in DC. Why didn't we arrest them? They didn't arrest nobody. I think they arrested a couple of people. But like, you didn't charge nobody with anything. They were disrupting federal proceedings. And they were in the middle, the same place where they were, walking through, where you saw the videos in January 6th. They were in that same courtyard. And nobody was arrested. Nobody said, oh, they're inciting the insurrectionists. Nope, nobody said that. But it's only when it serves you a purpose. We gotta say, oh, we're gonna twist this law to say, hey, they're violent insurrectionists. It doesn't make sense. Daniel Perry, exactly. DC ain't even a state, but they got to 19 what is it, electoral votes. You guys put in chat, do you think they should get rid of the electoral votes? And it should be like we're voting based off of popularity, basically, numbers, you know, or do you believe that we should still have the electoral college? I think we should get rid of that. But anyway, DC, they tried to become a state though a long time ago, and they said, no, you ain't a state. I don't know if you guys remember that when DC tried to put in, they always, every few years, somebody's always fussing, we should be a state. So, you know, they could get maybe federal dollars or whatever. But everybody, they always end up losing that argument. Anyway, John Allen says, from Clarksdale, Mississippi, the blackest state in the U.S., and we have some outstanding political leaders. Yeah, I mean, and we would never hear about those. We only hear about the ones that's running amok. But we shouldn't. Why is the supervisor a nationwide thing? Township supervisor, you know, why are we hearing about that? It's because of corruption and they're misusing funds or anything, something like that. And even New Orleans, why are we hearing about that? We shouldn't. We shouldn't know who Latoya Cantrell is unless she's famous. Why do we hear about her? Because she's doing some crazy stuff. No, this is a safeguard against California, New York, picking every president. Yeah, I could see that. And Mr. Wombat said, absolutely not. We need electoral college. I argue we should do electoral college at the state level as well. Okay. Never thought about that. And Noble Young said, hell no. Everybody like, absolutely not, Chawanne. What is wrong with you? Kevin Walker, absolutely not. Electoral college is necessary to protect the smaller states. But isn't the electoral college, well, I can see where you're talking about. They still get some type of vote. But it's all weighted. It's weighted average, you know. If you have less people, less population, you get less electoral college. How often do they reevaluate the electoral college system? Because, you know, you have some states lose a population, like California. Does California still have the same electoral college as it did 10 years ago? It shouldn't, because we know they're losing population. I have to look it up. They do it every census. Okay. Anyway, so you see, I told you this is not research. I don't know. I have to look at the numbers. Lexi says Dems wanted to get rid of the electoral college when Trump won. They're like, oh, hell no, Trump won. We need to get rid of the electoral college. Yeah, they was mad as hell when Trump won. And then they was actually offended that Trump actually took his job seriously. Like, oh, hell no. He's taking his job seriously. They thought he wouldn't take being president seriously. And he did. And he did a good job. I believe he did a really excellent job running the country. He just needs to stay off of Twitter. That's the only thing I didn't agree with. Anyway. We have Brian Leffler from Louisville, Kentucky. And Wombat is saying a handful of cities shouldn't dictate the entire state or whole country. I truly agree with you. And Warrior saying facts at Lexi. Now they want to dissolve the Supreme Court. You gonna see that. We should dissolve the Supreme Court because they didn't agree with them. They always trying to change the rules when they lose, right? And every state gets 2 senators. Yeah. Okay. So I believe that was it for our talk for today. I have another story tomorrow. I just got to gather the information. I want to give you guys correct information. And this is about this lady. You know how you take your kid to work day? This went to the left. She took the meaning, take your kid to work day, to a whole new meaning. Okay, so we'll be talking about that tomorrow. You probably already seen the story. If not, I haven't seen it on YouTube yet, but I've been seeing it on Instagram. So anyway, you guys, I really appreciate every single last one of you. Tomorrow, don't forget, if you're in one of those states, it is Super Tuesday. So get out and vote. Cast your ballot. Your vote matters. Your voice matters. And I am sending all my good to you. I will talk to you tomorrow.